We
Great.
are live. Hi, everyone. Hi, welcome back
Hi.
to. Hi. Hi, Corinna. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Blossom Living with POI. Today we have Corinna with us.
Hiya.
And today she's going to be sharing her story with us. So I'm going to get her to introduce herself and just dive in. And I can see the comments. So I think I read out that comment already. Yeah. So Corinna, I'm just going to get you to introduce yourself and tell us more about your journey so far.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so amazing. As I was just telling you before we started, I've been following your channel like super obsessively, and it's been the most useful tool to really kind of understand what POI is once I got the right diagnosis. And so I really hope that this can be at least be helpful to some people kind of feeling like they're not alone. So thank you so much for this. So my name is Corinna and I am originally Italian. I'm 26 and I live in London. And I'm here because at the age of 15, I was diagnosed with what is now known as POI, but I was given this very convoluted name that was just a kind of name encompassing all the symptoms that I was going through. So it didn't really tell me what I actually had. And I was just basically dismissed for a very long time. And only very recently, in the past 9 months, I've actually, known what this is all about, that this is POI and how to treat it, how to live with it. And I'm kind of relearning everything and I'm feeling so much better now. But, this is something that's been going through since I was 10. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey.
It has been, yeah. 10
Yeah.
years old. Like when you were 10, you started having symptoms already at 10?
Yeah, so now looking back, knowing what all the symptoms are, I find it absolutely crazy because I had all of them. I just wasn't aware of it, and the doctor never, put them all together at all. So
Yeah.
the first thing actually that I went through that was really, really painful. So I used to be a child singer, so I just sang all the time, and I was part of this choir, and we recorded every weekend, or we did lots of concerts, and my voice started to become so thin. And I developed what is called nodules to my vocal cords, which is a very sort of common thing that happens to some singers when they strain their voices. But that was very strange because I hadn't changed the way I was singing, or I hadn't really done anything. So everyone just thought, well, you're growing up, like your voice is developing. This is just kind of a difficult time for your voice. It will heal.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first sign, because then I did all the sort of retraining and I followed all the rules that my doctors gave me to like get rid of these nodules and like heal. And after over a year, nothing was changing. My voice was exactly the same, was super thin, super weak. And, for me, 1 year already without singing was like tragic because that was like my biggest passion. But, nothing was developing. And I kind of knew at the back of my head that was kind of linked to everything else that I was going through.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the biggest thing, I guess, for me. And then all the other things were, so I was very active, very sporty, and I kept injuring myself, again, doing things that I'd always done. So I would sprain my ankles, my knees, anything to do with my legs. I was on crutches like twice, 3 times a year, even more. And so I was doing athletics and synchronized swimming. So not like crazy sports, like quite, common. I don't know. And
You were active, yeah. And your
yeah,
bones, sounds like your bones were already kind of really fragile at that time already. You just didn't know what it was, but because you were quite active, you were swimming and yeah.
yeah. So I did everything, now looking back, that's great. That's as much as you can do to keep your bones healthy, is being active and doing, exercising.
Yeah.
So I was doing everything I could without knowing it, but still I was getting injured all the time. And I remember once I was jumping of joy because I got my marks from school. I don't know, I was 12 or something, and I injured my ankle because I jumped. Like, that was ridiculous. And I couldn't even tell anyone. Like, I felt so ashamed, and I just felt, why am I so broken? Why am I like not, no one else around me was having that. But because I was quite a tall child, my doctor just thought, it's growing pains, it's to do with like how tall you're growing, and no one ever questioned it. And I've been told all sorts of things since. So for example, I went to a specialist doctor once for my knees, and they told me, oh, but it's the shape of your knees, the way they're shaped, like you're always gonna like have pain if you run, if you do this, if you do that. Actually now I can do everything, because I know it's not actually the shape of it, it's just I was lacking all this. So and also like everything to do with kind of menopause. Obviously my anxiety was through the roof, and I was super insecure, and I had heart palpitations quite a lot. I couldn't sleep at night, and I remember they referred me to a cardiologist who couldn't see anything. But that was that, I just went through all these things that now are so clearly connected, and no one knew anything, basically. And the most obvious one was I never had my period, and my breast hadn't developed at all. Like my development had kind of gone, normal up to a certain time, but my breast never developed. And I actually think, it almost stopped, if it makes sense. So I had like an infection. I had like very high fever, and I went to the hospital, and I was there for about a week. So it was quite a, big thing. And up till then, I remember I was developing. I was all self-conscious. Oh, the nurses are going to know I'm in puberty, whatever. And then after that, like everything stopped. So I don't know if it's at all linked to this infection, to this like, high fever. But after that, it's just nothing was happening. All my friends were growing boobs and getting their periods, and I was just not getting any of that. So that's kind of all the symptoms in one go.
No, that it's a lot of symptoms, and to think that having all, especially with your bones, when you're talking about your bones, like I said earlier, you were quite active. So the fact that you were constantly injuring yourself and all the symptoms, to think that it wasn't actually put together, it's just like you've actually suffered a lot. To actually, at what point then did you know that something was wrong, that you went to the hospital and then you were actually diagnosed? At what point was it?
I was like 15 years and 15 and a half years old, I think then. So this had been going on for a long time. So it'd been at least 5 years. But I think inside of me, I just know there was something wrong, like all along. I think because of the voice that wasn't going back to normal, and also just how my body felt like it wasn't developing at all. It didn't, before it did feel like that for a little bit, like it was developing, and then all of a sudden, like it wasn't working. So I think inside of me, I knew something was wrong, but because I'd brought it up with my GP so many times, like every year, I think we went, and, I went with my mom, and we would kind of ask, is it okay? Like, she hasn't had her period yet. And he would always say, oh, that's so good. Like so many kids now have it too early nowadays. Like she's such a late developer. That's so good. And by the time I was 15, we asked for a referral, and we got straight away referred to what is like one of the best hospitals in Milan. And that was the pediatric endocrinology clinic. And they just did basically all the possible tests that exist. And unfortunately, they kind of gave me the diagnosis only after all the test results. So I was waiting for these results for quite a while. So I remember I was on holiday, and they called my mum and they told her on the phone.
On holidays?
Yeah. And that was just so wrong, because they literally said, hi, your daughter's karyotype is normal, so it's not a genetic sort of issue. We don't know why, but her ovaries don't work, and she's never going to be able to have children naturally. And that was that. And I wasn't even told in person, so my mum had to tell me, and there wasn't a word, there wasn't a diagnosis. They called it primary amenorrhea, but that's like just means I hadn't had a period. So that could be so many other things. And that was it. So then I did go back and see them in person in the autumn. And I think they just said, well, all your life you're just going to be on medication. They didn't really explain HRT to me. And they put me on a very, very small dose of HRT. only for a few months and then put me on the birth control pill. So I actually wasn't developed properly at all when they put me on the pill. And I was just not understanding like why, for example, HRT would have been better for me. Like I was never given the option, but the short period of time that I was on HRT for, that was under my mum's name because they couldn't prescribe it to me in Italy because I was too young to be prescribed HRT. So I think that's why they put me on the pill as well, just to ensure that I could, you know, access it easily. So that was fun.
Do you know what really struck me is like the fact that they called your mom on holiday and they just told her. How did she give you that information? Like that mustn't. How did she like?
Yeah.
Did she call you and like? Did she tell you right away, or did she wait until maybe you got home till?
So I remember I was there.
Hard.
I was there while she got called. So I was on the balcony
okay.
and she was inside. So I could kind of hear, you know, when like someone picks up the phone and it's like an important call and you can tell they go all like silent and kind of serious. So I could tell it was to do with that. And I think my mom just asked like a couple of questions, but they were literally on the phone for like 5 minutes. And so, yeah, she was just like, yeah, they called. You'll be fine. Like they will give you medication, but your ovaries don't work and they don't know why. And that was a bit like, you know, because she was obviously emotionally like impacted by this. She was, you know, she was obviously anxious herself and not feeling great about it. But I think she tried really hard not to make me feel worse. But, you know, she's quite an anxious person and I am as well. So I think I just absorbed her anxiety. And I think those days, like the first few days were really hard, but I kind of almost kind of made sense of it in the first few days. Like I really wanted to kind of come to terms with the infertility, if you like, side of things, which seemed to be the only thing the doctors cared about, because the only thing they mentioned was you'll never have children naturally. They never said all your life you're going to go through menopausal symptoms. So, you know, that was the one thing I thought I had to deal with. And unfortunately,
Corinna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think I can't hear you anymore. I think there's something going on with the audio.
No.
Hold on. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, no, I can hear you. I couldn't.
I don't know what's going on. If you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. Okay, but I can't hear you. Guys, can you hear Corinna when she's speaking?
Can you hear me?
Technology.
Fun, isn't it?
I think there's someone online. Yeah, can you hear Corinna while she's speaking? Because I cannot hear her anymore. I don't know if it's my audio or yours.
Yeah. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, you can hear her. Okay, why can't I hear you? Oh no, technology.
What's the best thing to do? Shall I jump?
We can hear. You can hear both of us. Okay, that's good. But I can't hear what you're saying, which is strange. How am I going to hear your story if I can't hear what you're saying? Okay. Oh, that's strange now.
Shall I jump off? Let me
hold on 1 second. I can't hear what you say. You know what? This is fine. It's all part of it. Hold on. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
That's a bit strange now. Why is this happening? Shall I jump off and back again? Oh, back on again. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, try that. That might end the live. I don't know. Yeah, jump on and back up. We'll probably just have to start.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, jump on and back up again. Let's help. We'll be back, everyone. We'll be back. We're having a bit of a technical issues. Oh wow. Okay. She'll be back. Maybe two of you can go on the. Maybe two of you can go on the phone. She's back. Okay, we'll try that again. Hopefully now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, I can hear you now.
Great. Oh, okay. I'm so glad.
Well, we don't know what happened, but it's okay. We're back.
That's good. And we're still on the same live, so.
Exactly. Still the same live. We have no control over technology.
We think we try our best, but then it still rules everything.
All right,
Great.
so we can continue. Thank you. Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm gonna get you for the last thing I heard you say. The last question I asked you was, I heard you say about how you were there with your mom when she got the news, and then that's where it caught up. So if you want to start from there, and then we can just
So I think she was quite like anxious, but she tried not to show it too much to me because
yeah,
obviously she knew it was about me, but I think she was going through the sort of grieving process herself. So it's a bit of a blur. Like I can't remember exactly, how it went, if she cried, but I assume we both did. And, that kind of usual situation where obviously mom understands the seriousness of the situation. And, I probably didn't to the fullest extent. But what really we clinged onto was the fact that there is a medication that we can be, that I could have been on my life that would have made me basically normal, if you like. Only problem would have been the infertility. So that's the one thing they mentioned. They never mentioned menopausal symptoms all my life, adjusting doses. So yeah, maybe that was easier to deal with at the time. But yeah, I think I just started thinking, you know what, it's not terrible. I could always adopt, or there's lots of other options. So I think at the time I tried to like get on with it because I wasn't really given any information apart from this. And so, yeah, I just couldn't wait to look normal and to start feeling, more like my peers, have a period and, just go through everything that everyone else was going through. So I think that's how I kind of coped with it at the beginning. But yeah, I wish they kind of offered a proper psychological support. They did say, so apparently they told my mum, she could like receive some psychological support. But the way they said it was almost like, it wasn't inviting me to do that. And I wish they'd explained why and tried to really like get someone to help me, because I obviously didn't have any tools and my mum didn't either. And I think the way they said it, just because they had to say it, didn't work with me.
I think we've said that our story is so similar, because that was also the same thing with me. Like the infertility part was mostly what they focused on. They didn't really say much about the menopause part, how it affects my life and things like that. And then when it came to like help, it was more like, if there's group therapy, if you want to go to group therapy. But there was no reason to, why do I need to go to group therapy? What was the reason behind that? It's there if you need it. I was like, why do I need it? I don't understand why I need it. So I agree with you on that. The lack of support from the beginning, and then the lack of information as well, really does not help.
Yeah.
It doesn't help. So when you were then diagnosed, I know like obviously you didn't have much information at all given to you then. So this is something you had to learn along the way, in terms of at what point then did you decide to say, okay, let me find out more information myself on what is going on with me, so I can learn more on how to, better help yourself.
Yeah. So I grew up in a family that's very much always listening to the authorities. So I tried really hard to get as much information as possible from the doctors. I thought, well, they must know, they are the ones that will help us. And my parents were very much like kind of helping me to maybe like encouraging me to write questions down before every appointment, like try to get as much as possible out of them, because they are the expert. We don't know, but they know. And that would have worked had they been real experts. But unfortunately, the care I received was absolutely dreadful. I had a male doctor, and I don't want to say that all male doctors are not competent at all, but the male doctor I had just couldn't even look at me in the eyes when I asked him questions about what that meant for me, for my future. So I often asked him if my breasts were going to develop properly, because that seemed to be really slow, or when I would get my period, or how it worked with my uterus, like work, because they kept reassuring me, you will be able to carry a child in the future because we're growing your uterus slowly. And I just wanted to understand like all the practicalities of it. I wanted to know exactly what my future would have looked like, or at least what problems I could have dealt with. And they couldn't answer any of these questions, to the point that at some point I just stopped asking, because I just wasn't given any information that I needed. Everything was like, oh yeah, you'll eventually get your period. Eventually everything will be fine. Actually, it wasn't fine. Like my breasts never properly developed. And probably they're starting to develop now because I'm on the right HRT.
Yeah.
But they never listened to my concerns, the fact that things were not working properly, and so many other things. So the only things they wanted to help me was like very practical concerns. So for example, I didn't like the patches at the beginning because I was swimming all the time. So I didn't like anyone to see those patches. And so they were very good at like practically giving me other solutions. Like they suggested the gel at the time. And that was as much as they could do for me, like nothing in terms of making me understand how much this would have affected me. So I started like obviously Googling at the time, although it was the very beginning of...
Thank God for Google. Oh my God, I don't know where I would have been. I'm going to be honest, Google has actually provided more information. And I think sometimes when I go for an appointment, I say Google. They say, I'm not Google. I was like, no, I don't just go to Google. I look at articles. I don't just go search. I'm actually looking at articles and things. That's how I get my information. So a lot of the time when you tell them Google, they're like, oh, Google. It's like, no, Google has actually saved a lot of us because that's what we're getting information and learning more about our diagnosis. And
it's like going to the library.
Yeah, exactly. So
there's nothing wrong with it. But I Googled this name of my diagnosis and nothing came up. Like it was not the right name, and it's just a random name that really returned nothing. So I just lived with this idea that I had this very rare illness that no one knew about, that like no one had, because I also asked my doctors, can you put me in touch with anyone else who either went through this or, maybe has something similar? And, they said, oh, if we have someone, we will. But I think the problem there was that it was a pediatric clinic. And so it's quite rare among teenagers and young people. So I think, maybe they could have just found, a non-pediatric clinic that deals with this, and they could have found more like 20-year-olds something. So yeah, it just didn't work. Like I didn't know anything else. Basically, it just says, oh, ovaries have failed. Like that's it. Like that's as much as I knew. And again, there was no nothing really being shared with that name. So, and I did this for a few years. Like every couple of years, I would have like that moment of like, oh, I just really want to get to the bottom of this. Like I just want someone to give me answers. And what I did is, because I moved to the UK in the meantime, and I also tried to get information out of real doctors in the UK. And that also was really, really hard. So I went to my GP, explained the whole situation. They referred me to an endocrinologist who, again, didn't have a clue, didn't tell me that it was POI. Although at the time he did mention that Daisy Network, which is obviously the charity working with women with POI, exists. But he said to me, that's a charity supporting people who have a similar thing to yours, as in like, that's not really what you have. And I think because he didn't understand like what POI really is, that can happen at different ages, that, I think he just didn't know enough to kind of convince me that that was something to look at, because I didn't, and then I Googled POI at the time, I remember, but then I saw there is a 5% chance of getting pregnant. And I thought, well, that can't be me, because I've been told I have like 0 chances. And so again, that was kind of, hitting a wall again. But I kept asking, do you have any like research, like studies where I could take part in? Like, is there anything that I can discover about this rare condition that I have that no one seems to have? And he did his homework and he referred me to what I now know is a POI specialist clinic, but I didn't know then. And he referred me to this clinic. And when I was seen there, no one told me what I have is POI. So again, they asked me to repeat my story, and I did, but they didn't tell me what my diagnosis really is. And what I was on the pill at the time, and I was going through all the symptoms that, lots of people go through.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't receiving the right care. But because I didn't know any better, I'd never lived as an adult. feeling good, I really didn't know, like I wasn't supposed to be this anxious. I wasn't supposed to have joint pain all the time. And so they didn't, you know, the fact that they didn't question it or ask me, and they just assumed I was fine on the pill, that also wasted a couple of years, because I could have very easily, you know, started to get treatment in 2018. And then I was just in such a painful situation last year. Like all my symptoms had gone so much worse. I'd like, honestly, I think I've ticked all the boxes. Like there were a couple that I hadn't tried yet in terms of symptoms. And last year they all came. But again, I thought, you know, maybe it's just lockdown. You know, everyone's going through a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Like they offered me antidepressants, but eventually there were just too many things that were going you know, going on in my body and in my mind. And that's when I went back to all those letters, and in the POI specialist clinic referrals, it did give my initial diagnosis, but also POI written down somewhere. So I then started researching it, and that's when really I understood, wow, so I just have something that 1 in 100 women have. And that just opened up like amazing care, because once you have the power to know what to ask for, you can really get it, because you're supposed to be receiving it.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was
once you have that basic knowledge, you're able to then have a way to ask questions and to have better understanding, because when you don't have much information about what you're going through, what's going on, you don't really know what the right question is or even how to go about it, especially when the doctors are supposed to be the one helping you out. You're not getting much information. Sometimes, this is why I've come to learn, I feel like sometimes when you're asking the question, they're not giving you, but when you start asking specific questions, that's when you're then trying to drag like answers out of you. Like, so why did you not tell me this? Why did I have to go do my own research and do so much to kind of get that specific question about this for me to be able to get what you're supposed to give to me, like right from the beginning, and tell me, you know. So so well done on actually, you know, taking ownership and actually doing your own, because it's a lot of work, and we shouldn't have to do that. And yeah, it's crazy. But how are you feeling now on HR? I know we talk and you're still trying to adjust your HR routine and things like that, and still trying to get that sorted. How are you feeling now?
So I'm feeling really good. I think I haven't felt like this since I was, you know, 10, 11, maybe 12 maximum, which is ridiculous, because, you know, I feel so sad that I've wasted, if you like, 15 years of my life not feeling well. Well, I could have just always felt this good. And it's everything, you know, it's physical health in the sense that I've found like a kind of fitness, if you like, routine that works for me, so I don't feel any joint pain, which I would if I didn't exercise every day. So
you have to share that soon now. You share that very soon, what you do for your bone health. I think
definitely. Because it came out really good, apparently, my latest bone density. So I'm very proud of that. But I started at the very rock bottom. So if I made it, then everyone really can. But also in terms of mental health, like my partner just pointed this out to me today. It was like, oh, you used to cry a lot, but now you don't cry that much. And it's true, you know, it's ridiculous. I just thought I was this, like, I mean, I'm still an emotional person, but I thought I was this emotional wreck, like always crying and feeling everything so strong that I couldn't control myself. And I'm not actually like that. Like, I can cry if I have to, you know, if there's a good reason to, but I don't need to cry every day for a little thing, like, you know. And I had identified with this personality that wasn't actually me. It was just my hormones not being right. And that's just absolutely terrifying. But even things like my voice, so it hadn't come back until now at all. Like, it was still very much very weak, and, you know, obviously it had developed into an adult's voice, but I could tell that it wasn't ready. And every time I tried singing, I tried like for a whole year when I was 18, and it was just not there, you know, like my voice hadn't come back. So I'm now really excited to try to like train it again, because it's the first time as an adult that I feel like it could potentially be healthy. But again, this is only because I've kept asking for more estrogen, because no one would have offered it to me spontaneously. You know, they would have kept me on the 50 micrograms, which I wasn't fine on.
which is low because I also started with the 50, and I thought, yeah, it's okay. At least I'm taking some sort of medication that's supposed to help me, even though I didn't even know there were low dose, and there was a lot
Yeah.
of symptoms I was still like suffering from right from a young age. But I was like, it's okay. Maybe this is how I'm supposed to feel. This is how I'm supposed to, because I don't know how I'm supposed to feel because I've had the symptoms all my life. So maybe this is how I'm supposed to feel. But when I start to learn that, no, it's not, and then being on a higher dose of HRT, now I see the difference. Like, I absolutely see that. I'm like, oh my God, I absolutely see the difference so much. I think I also said this to you, like, I remember when I was much younger, doing like before I was diagnosed, my friends they still pointed at it. Do you remember when people just say hi to you or they just look at you, you shout at them? Like, I used to have like, what are you looking at? So like, I was so angry and agitated, and I just didn't understand why. But again, it's all part of this hormones and things like that that's happening. I just didn't know. And they're like, do you remember that? I'm like, yeah, I know. So it's yeah. So it's taking a long journey to get to where you are today. And you have to keep going. So yeah. Can you share a little bit more about your bone health? Anyone, if you have any questions, just leave the questions and then we'll get them to Corinna once at the end of the live. I know we talked about your bones earlier. How is your bone health now, and what are some of the things that you do to help your bone health?
Yeah, so yoga for me, yoga or Pilates, like anything that has to do with just feeling good as a whole. It's not, for me, it's not even a workout. It's more like just something that makes me feel good. That's been so helpful. And I started actually like a long time ago, but I would do it like once a week, go to a proper gym and do the class. But I think now I'm so much happier just, being able to do that literally every day at home. And I just do 20 minutes, half an hour, and what that does is like strengthens all the muscles, like my wrists. Who knew I had muscles in my wrists, or like in my back, in my neck, like everything's much stronger, and that way really my bones don't hurt. And if I don't do it for like 3 days, because maybe I'm traveling or I'm doing something else, I really feel that my my wrists start to hurt. I have to like hold them to like, stop the pain. And yeah, it just doesn't feel right. So I've noticed that always coincides with when I'm not exercising. But then I also do like proper workouts. Like sometimes I put like weights, little weights around my wrists, and I do like kickboxing or like, high intensity exercise. But I think it's the kind of daily routine that has really helped me. And that way I can even do things like running, which I couldn't do in the past because my knees would hurt. And so yeah, it's a bit like a sacrifice, if you like, because you have to like set aside a bit every day. But it's like eating healthy, isn't it? Like, it's in the end, it's a good habit to have. So why not?
Exactly. Why not? And I think as well, talking about like bone health as well, it's the same thing with me with my knee. I remember going to physio, I've always had issues with my right knee, right, like from very young. And I've always been very active as well, to walking, a lot of walking. So when initially I never really thought much about it, I'm like, oh no, it's fine, it's okay. And then my left knee started, like, especially during the lockdown, I started having issues, and it came to the point where it was affecting my daily activity. So I remember going to the GP, they did the MRI and X-ray, and everything was okay. I was there to go to physio. So I went to physio, and even the physio was actually even affecting the knee, was giving me much pain. I was like, what is going on? Why am I in so much pain? And that really then reduced my activity. I was like, if I'm having pain to do what I'm supposed to do, that's good for my bones, but I can't do it, what am I going to do? So then I knew that maybe because I need a higher dose of estrogen to actually help, or my hormones just needs to be balanced off. But nobody was really listening to me until I got under the care of Dr. Louise Nissen, which is a menopause specialist. That's when, so I've been on high dose now, and I have to say I've definitely noticed some improvement in terms of my joint. And it doesn't mean like HRT has completely cured it, but I have my moments, but I've definitely noticed like improvement in them. So so it's really important to listen to your body and just
Yeah, definitely. And for us, it's so hard to know what's normal. Like, as you were saying, like I broke a bone in my foot while doing Pilates when I was 21. Like, that's something that shouldn't happen. Like, I literally just stood on my tiptoes and my foot broke. Like, that's ridiculous. And I just always had pain wearing like heels. And that's not, you know, people don't go through that. But I just thought, well, I'm weird, you know, like that's just me.
I
But
must be special, so it's okay.
yeah, right. But always, yeah, always, you know, if that's what you're going through, like just ask for this. And it usually is really just estrogen lack, you know, you don't have enough like in some areas. Because yeah, I was so shocked when I saw there was like a nice little table with like kind of the outline of a person and kind of filled up with estrogen to a certain extent. You know, yeah, you've probably seen that. So apparently when you're like teens and 20s, it's like really, really almost to the top of your head. And then it kind of decreases. But
As
for
you get
us,
older,
during our 20s, you know, and teens, like our estrogen was like bad. So yeah, we need to like make up for it now.
And then now imagine as that teen, your estrogen is supposed to be high, but your ovaries are not working. Your ovaries are actually not, because I know that like the ovaries makes the most estrogen, your most hormones, your ovaries, and then you have the, what's it called? Is it the adrenal gland and but your ovaries produce the more estrogens, those hormones that you need.
Yeah.
So imagine then with POI, like your ovaries are literally not working, so it's not producing those hormones at all. So it's not, you're not having all the symptoms and going through that. So that's why for us it's so important that we have to then take a charity, which then kind of replace those hormones that your body is not producing. So that's why I've come to learn what it is for myself, to have an understanding why I'm actually on HRT, because for a long time I didn't know why I was taking this medication, what HRT was really for. So this is something I feel like it should be, given to you at that point, not just go HRT and buy, it's like, this is why you're on it. This is the reason why it's supposed to do this. It gives you that better understanding, and then makes you, because there were times where I'm sure you as well, where I had to question, like, why am I on this? Is there a reason for this? Why do I need this? Because I just didn't have an understanding to why I was actually on, on medication. Yeah.
But also the doctors didn't even themselves think too much, like I was prescribed like the birth control pill, the one where you have a week of a break every month. And I should never have been prescribed that, because I had no hormones at all for 1/4 of my life, 1/4 of my life. Like, what is that? And I was like really depressed that week, and like things were particularly worse. And I went to multiple endocrinologists who never questioned my medication then. And I was recently told by the Newson Clinic as well that should never have happened. I should have never been left 1 week every month without anything at all, because we don't produce anything. So at least give us a pill continuously, although the pill is not the best option, but definitely don't leave us completely, uncovered. Like, that's just not, that's like an 80-year-old person would feel, but we were 20-year-old something. So it's ridiculous.
With nothing. Yeah. I'm so glad that you're feeling much better. That's really good. I'm so glad. And just keep looking after yourself and your mental health. And it's so important. And thank you so much for, coming out and sharing your stories. I remember when we first started chatting, and I knew that you had that passion. You were like, I really want to come out and start sharing my story. So I'm so glad that you came out at your own time to share your story, because it's so important. And if anybody have any questions, I love your expression of what are you looking at, Anita? I can't stop laughing. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the camera, so I'm looking like the comments, so I don't miss any questions. So that's why I keep looking and see me pointing my finger.
Just make me smile. You've got such like sunny energy.
So I'm just there like pressing away. But I'm listening to you, so don't worry. Is there anything else you like to add, Corinna?
No. I think really just keep advocating for yourselves. Like, everyone's got a different like situation, but I hear, people's like symptoms and things they go through, they're always very similar in the end. And this is also for menopausal women, like, you know, in the right age, if you like, or perimenopausal women. Like, hormones are such a huge part of our lives, and it's incredible how, like, doctors don't share this with us. Like, they don't worry if our periods change, our hormones are different. Like, that's always the last thing to be looked at. Well, actually, I would really encourage anyone who's seen any changes in anything to do with their period or their hormone health to just get that checked first, because really that can save so much time. And also, the pill may not be a great option for lots of us. So HRT really is key. And I think, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if just everyone knew so much more about this, and not just us, people who actually have a diagnosis, because we can really help each other, you know, kind of support and understand like what our friends are going through, like maybe spot like signs, because we're so caught up with ourselves, aren't we? So it's always helpful when your friend, you know, mentions, oh, you used to be so angry, you know, like, oh, it means I'm not that angry. You know, it means I'm feeling better.
Exactly, because you might not really, you know, but you might not really notice that yourself. But when someone tell you, like, you used to be so angry, I'm like, yeah, I used to be, but not like that anymore. I wonder why. You're like, oh, you know, I noticed maybe a change maybe during this time frame, and then you link it together that you were just really irritated, and just, you know, it wasn't my fault. So so it's really important to kind of like talk to your friends, talk to people, open up, and, you know, just check on your sisters. I have 2 sisters, and I'm constantly asking them questions. How you doing? How you feeling? And even some that they feel like maybe I'm just into their business too much, but I'm genuinely coming to just to be sure, you know, that they are okay, they're feeling the best that they can. So I'm constantly like, how are you feeling? How's your menstrual cycle? And this, how's that? And I'm constantly checking in with them. So just checking with your sisters, your mom, you know. And I feel like sometimes people might not want to talk about things like this. Maybe there's a stigma to, oh, I don't want to talk about my period, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about, but I feel it's so important for us to talk about it, because there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with talking about any changes in it's happening with you.
Not at all. And we need to learn about these things when we're growing up. You know, would be amazing if like schools like actually taught women like what to expect, like what's actually not normal, what to watch out for. And like, you know, we got support like at work and at uni, and, you know, so everyone, you know, throughout your life, you know that's something to watch out for. It's not just if you're diagnosed after so long, because it just takes so long to be diagnosed if you don't, you know, look out for these signs. It's crazy.
Exactly. And I like what you said at the end, that, you know, it happens to younger women. It's not just when you're in your 50s that, you know, it happens. So I think there needs to be more exposure to that young people are actually going through menopause. I think a lot of the surprises some people have been so surprised when they find it's like, what? At what age? I was like, yeah, from people go through, it's like, what? I would never have thought that someone as young. It's like, yeah, and again, it's a condition, and also it's more for us, it is a lot of health issues involved. So, you know, it's so important that we talk about this thing, so that, you know, to expose it and to share that information out there. And just to be, because it's very sensitive, and sometimes people can say things without actually, you know, meaning them, but it's just,
I think we just need to be confident talking about it, because if we are not ourselves, then who is, you know, going to make
and you know your body best. I always say, you know your body best. If you feel just out of sorts, always go in and get it checked, essentially. So okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I don't see there's any questions. Yes, so you've answered the bone questions already, so that's great. I know one person in particular is going to be very happy to hear some of the tips that you have, because that question came from Ava. So thank you so much for joining us today. If there's no more questions, we're going to end the live now. Let me just check and see. I think that's it. Okay, Ava. Corinna.
Anyway.
She's stuck in my head now. Corinna. thank you for joining us, and thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you all later then.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for having
You're
me.
welcome. Oh, Corinna, you stay so that
I
we
will
can talk
stay.
after the game. Okay.
Lovely.
Bye everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.